I saw you on the screen, then you disappeared. Are you still interested in...
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I am definitely interested in making some contribution to this very important motion. And I will start by stating that really the reason why we get into problems that such as the ones we have currently, that we are seeking to cure by way of these supplementary estimates, is because from the very outset, our budgets never balance at all. And I've kept saying time and again that it is time we chose to live within our means. Of course, nobody seems to be listening to me. Mr. Speaker, once you have fiscal deficit, you are bound to have a situation that we currently have, for instance, in the road sector, where commitments alone, we are told, is something to the tune of 900 plus billion shillings, almost a trillion shillings, and pending bills to the tune of 150 billion shillings. That is expected because under the PFM Act, and this must be understood clearly by members, under the PFM Act and indeed under the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act, once this House passes an appropriations bill and it is assented to and it becomes an appropriations act, the spending entities, be they ministries, state departments, and what have you, agencies and what have you, have got a leeway to commence procurement. They don't have to wait for exchequer releases. And when the Bombadi is here, can educate us on this. And that is what occasions these ballooning commitments and pending bills. And how do you cure it? In my view, the only way to cure it is to develop a budget that is realistic. A budget that you know how it is going to be financed. There are no two ways about it, and it is not rocket science, Mr. Speaker. Okay? So unless we deal with that, we shall continue to be dealing with these supplementary budgets year in, year out. In fact, there are occasions when we have had to deal with supplementary budget 3, I think, in this House. That is my first point. My second point, Mr. Speaker, is on the now famous or infamous Article 223 of the Constitution. I have looked at the recommendations of the committee that we need to develop to look at this article and fine-tune the rules. That could as well be true. And I must thank the chairman of the committee for his eloquence and grasp of the issues. In fact, when I was listening to him and going by what I read today in the Daily Nation, it seems the contest in the mountain is going to be very interesting in the coming years. That's something I want to comment on further than that. Mr. Speaker, Article 223 is quite explicit. It provides for circumstances under which you can spend public money without an Appropriations Act to support it. I don't need to belabor that. But if you go to Regulation 40, Regulation 40, Sub-Regulation 3 of the Public Finance Management, National Government Regulations 2015, and further down Regulation 40, Sub-Regulation 4 of the same regulations, it is even clearer. The PFM regulations have even made it clearer under what circumstances you can spend money under Article 223 of the Constitution. What it calls for is just discipline, no further tinkering with the regulations or the Constitution, if you ask me. But then the committee is recommending something which is queer. At page 18 of the report. You know, I take my time to read these things. At page 18 of the report on non-financial recommendations, expenditure and Article 223 of the Constitution, recommendations Roman number 3 and 4. You know, when you say that the payment of those monies, 6.09 billion and 4 billion respectively, be rejected as per the recommendations of the mother committees. It's perfect. But you should go further. Yes. You should go further and say what you want us to do. And why I'm saying it is clear is that in the history of this parliament, under the new constitution, this house has never taken that route. You'll agree with me. The route, okay. It was only once on the matter of Ruaraka land, yes. Ruaraka land, yes. But then, even with that, we should go further and say what we want to do. That's my beef with this recommendation. Because for a principal secretary or an accounting officer to spend money under Article 223, there are elaborate processes that have to take place. And the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury must provide an approval. And he must actually copy that approval to the Controller of Budget, who has got further veto power to reject that approval or to refuse to comply with that approval. So we must be very, very clear what we want done. It must be very clear. We know under Article 226 of the Constitution, if you cause loss of public funds, you can be compelled to make good that loss. That is fine. That is fine. But then in this case, who are we going to compel to make good any possible loss? Is it the cabinet? Is it the cabinet? Because the cabinet memo must first be approved, must be generated. Is it the cabinet? Is it the cabinet secretary who communicates the approval by the approval of the or adoption of the cabinet memo? Is it the controller of budget who authorized the monies to be withdrawn? Who is it? I would expect the committee to go further than that. That is my contention. That is my contention. But again, Mr. Speaker, we are told that what is good for the goose is good for what? For the gun. Yes, what is good for a chungwa is good for a die. Hopefully. If there was misuse of Article 223 in the previous regime, there has equally been misuse of Article 223 in this nascent regime. There is evidence. There is evidence. So, for us to cure this disease once and for all, let us as a house put our foot down and say that Article 223 must only be applied where it is necessary, and in strict interpretation of the Constitution and the supporting legislation and regulations. It is the PFM Act and its regulations, 2015. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to lecture the House too much on financial issues or economics, but then, Mr. Speaker, I cannot end because I want to hear other people contributing to this very critical debate. As I end, subsidies have been removed wantonly. But you see, as you remove subsidies, you must provide safety nets to protect the vulnerable Kenyan poor people. You don't just remove them because IMF and World Bank have compelled you to do so. We are not subjects of IMF and or World Bank. We are a sovereign state with our unique challenges. And that is why we have been able to apply these subsidies to cushion the vulnerable segments of the population. If I were to be a consultant for this government, I would advise them to do something different from what they are doing. Subsidies have to be reintroduced as we look for a long-term solution. Not just pandering to the whims of IMF and World Bank, like a banana republic. Kenya is not a banana republic to be dictated to by foreign entities, which have got no understanding of our circumstances and unique culture. Mr. Speaker. On the issue of education, I would have expected money to be provided to deal with the biting shortage of teachers in our schools, and also to deal with the matter of the CBC and its implementation. We need more money to recruit teachers and to train them adequately to deal with the CBC. That is not here. That is not here, Mr. Speaker. Public universities, I would have expected. Because from where we sit or stand, we are totally opposed to any idea of privatizing public universities. We are also totally opposed to any idea of increasing university fees. And therefore, we would have expected proposals to provide for money to first and foremost bail out public universities from the current crunch that they find themselves in, and to provide subsidies to address the tuition cost of our poor children, Mr. Speaker. So I will not really reject this motion or oppose it, because I know Kenyans are suffering, okay? But I will want in the next cycle, especially in this cycle when we're dealing with the 2023-2024 budget, that all these issues I've raised are taken into consideration, that are factored in without looking at the political affiliations. Because Kenyan people don't eat politics. What they want are sound policies that can help them go through the rough times that they find themselves in. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Moses Kirima, Central Imenti.